Welcome to our programming channel. Today in edu.net we are going to see connected architecture or what is connected architecture. First we will see what is connected architecture in brief. In the connected architecture, connection with a data source is kept open constantly for data access as well as data manipulation operations. This is database and this is web form in our application. Suppose in this web form somewhere we are displaying or showing the records. At that time connection with database must be open. So for data access connection requires open, and if we are performing DML operations, that is we are inserting new records or updating existing records or deleting existing records, at that time also connection must be open. So for any database operation or interaction, connection must be open. In this way, this web form or application remains connected with database while performing operations. So this edu.net architecture is called as connected architecture. The edu.net connected architecture considers mainly three types of objects: connection object, command object, and data reader object. Connection object. The connection object allows us to establish a connection to a data source. We can make connection with a data source or a database with connection object. For connection string is necessary. In connection string, we have to mention data source, and this is machine name, or instead of this we can give dot also. Then initial catalog, this is database name. Then integrated security, SSPI, or we can write true. And when authentication is Windows authentication, there is no need to give username or password. But if authentication is SQL Server authentication, here login and password or username or password is necessary. So when authentication is SQL Server authentication, at that time here we have to mention username and password. We are referring the same example which we have seen in connected architecture with example video. So it is request that please watch that video also for better understanding the concept. The connection objects have methods for opening and closing connections. In connected architecture, we have to open the connection before perform any database operation. So we can use open method. We can open the connection in this way, con.open, and it is necessary and compulsory in connected architecture. Otherwise, we will get exception. And after completion of the work or task, we can close the connection with close method. So we can close the connection in this way, con.close. There are various data providers available in .NET. With the help of these data providers, we can make connection to different data sources or databases. Data providers in edu.net. Data provider, SQL client, and namespace for this provider is system.data.sql client, and this provider is used to connect to SQL server. Data provider OLEDB, and namespace is system.data.oledb. This provider is used to connect to an OLEDB data source. Data source like SQL Server 6.5 and earlier, and data source like Microsoft Access. Data provider ODBC. Namespace is system.data.odbc. This provider is used to connect an ODBC data source. Data provider Oracle client. Namespace is system.data.oracle client. This data provider is used to connect to an Oracle database. Command object. A command object executes SQL statements on the database. These SQL statements can be select, insert, update, or delete. The command object uses a connection object to perform these actions on the database. This is command object cmdobj, and here it is using connection object and query. This query may be select query or insert or update or delete query. In this way, we have initialized object with query and connection object con. Different execute methods of edu.net command object are execute non-query, execute reader, execute scalar. Execute non-query. Execute non-query method is used to execute the SQL statements or stored procedure to perform operations like insert, update, delete. Execute non-query executes the command and does not return any data. It returns the number of rows affected. Means execute non-query method does not return the records or does not show the records, but returns number. For example, if we delete two records, then it can show number 2. So we can able to display the message two records are deleted. Execute reader. Execute reader method is used to execute the SQL statements or stored procedure. Execute reader method get and read the set of rows fetched. Execute reader method uses select command. We can execute SQL statements or stored procedure, and after execution of SQL statement or stored procedure, we get result set or rows. We can able to get and read all the rows with execute reader method, or we can able to read multiple values with execute reader method. When we use select query, at that time we can use execute reader method. Execute scalar. Execute scalar method is used to execute SQL commands or stored procedure. After executing, execute scalar method returns a single value from the database. It returns the first column of the first row in the result set from a database. It is like execute reader method, but it does not return or show all the records. If there are 10 records or rows in the result set after executing query or stored procedure, then this method only returns first column of the first row. Thus, this method returns only single value from the database. In this way, we can use execute method, or here we can take here execute reader method, or we can select execute non-query method, or we can select execute scalar method. In this way, we can use execute methods of command object. We will see execute non-query, execute reader, execute scalar methods in detail in separate video. Data reader object. Data reader is used to read the data from the database. Data reader is read only. If we store the result in data reader object, then for execute reader we cannot see any error. But if we select here execute non-query, we get error. Similarly, if we select execute scalar, we get error. But when we select execute reader, we cannot see any error. And here we have select query. So data reader is read only. Within the data reader, we can navigate only in forward direction, and it also read only one record at a time. Now data reader is reading the records. Now here we can see first record is printed. Now data reader is reading the record, and here second record is printed. Again data reader is reading the record, and third record is printed. We have only 3 records in the table. So now data reader is trying to read the record, but there is no any record further. So control came out from the loop, and here connection is closed. So we have seen that data reader read first record, then second record, then third record, and after reading all the records, connection is closed, and all the records read by data reader one by one, not all the records at a time. And here we cannot see any chance to read the records in reverse manner, means third record, then second record, then first record. So data reader reads records in forward direction only, that is first record, then second record, and then third record, in this way. So data reader is forward only and read record one by one, that is one record at a time only. Data reader is connection oriented and requires an active connection while reading the data. In connected architecture, connection always require open. If we perform DML operations like insert, update, delete, at that time connection must be open. Here data reader is reading the records, but before reading the records the connection is closed. If we try to run the program, we get system.invalid operation exception, invalid attempt to call has rows when reader is closed. So for reading the records by data reader, also connection must be open or connection must be active, otherwise we will get exception. Now here we are not performing DML operations like insert or update or delete, and also we are not reading the records or we are not displaying the records from the table. Here we just try to access the records from the database or table. Here we have select query, and here we are just trying to save the result of this select query in DataReader object. And here if connection is not open, then we get system.invalid operation exception. Execute reader requires an open and available connection. The connection's current state is closed. So here also connection must be open. So connection must be open to access the records and to perform the operations. And if we open the connection, here we cannot see any error because connection is open while storing the result in DataReader object. So here we cannot see any error. Thus, in connected architecture, connection is kept open for data access as well as for any database operations. That's all for connected architecture, or what is connected architecture in edu.net. In our channel, There are regular uploads of programming related videos. So for latest updates, please subscribe the channel and like and share videos. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.